Yoo-hoo! It's me, Mickey Mouse, and you're listening to the Thodcast.
Hey, and welcome to episode 19 of the Thodcast. My name is Philip Elke, and I'm the host of the Thodcast, conversations about animation, where I'm joined by my co-host today, Jody Pulaski. Hey, Jody, how are you today?
I'm doing great, and I guess today I'm going to be playing Dawson and myself since he's not here with us.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's wonderful to have you, giving Dawson a little bit of a break this week. And we're going to just talk about some more live action. I know the last time you and I did an episode, just the two of us, it was also about a film that was mainly live action with some animation, that being Mary Poppins. Slightly different subject here today with a Marvel superhero movie, Captain Marvel. But I thought it'd be really interesting to get your perspective on this because this is the Walt Disney Company and Marvel Studios' first solo female superhero film. And Jody, you're an expert on all things Disney princess and female protagonists. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on the film.
So I just went to it last night with my mom, and I mean, my gut reaction is I loved it, but I compared it a lot to Wonder Woman, which I was obsessed with that when that came out. And I know that's a different brand. It's not, you said it's DC, it's Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel is...
Captain Marvel is Marvel Studios, which is owned by Disney. She's a Marvel comics character, and that character has gone through several iterations in the comics. And then Wonder Woman is a member of the Justice League, part of DC Comics pantheon, if you will, and they're owned by Warner Brothers Film Company.
Warner Brothers, yeah. So that was really only my thing to compare it to because I was racking my brain for other superhero movies I've seen in theaters, and I really think the only superhero movie I've ever seen in theaters besides Captain Marvel was Wonder Woman. So clearly I just like these female-led superhero ones. They're really bringing the female crowd into the theaters. I'm guessing if you looked up statistics, that there's a lot more girls going to these ones. But I thought it was really empowering. I thought the character was, I mean, for a superhero, very relatable. There were a few times like when you'd watch a scene of her triumphing that I just like wanted to start clapping. And I was like, maybe this is how men feel all the time because they get to watch like Spider-Man and Batman and Superman. Maybe I just need to be going to more like superhero movies because I walked out of there feeling like I could take on the world. Nice.
Well, yeah, if you're only checking it out for the women, I mean, first off, that's great that is a way for filmmakers to get more of an audience by of course branching out into more diverse territory, and we did see that last year as well with the huge opening for Black Panther, also including some more diversity within the superhero genre. But I mean, in general, superhero films are designed to be very empowering and developing relatable characters into these just very triumphant, overcoming characters that they're designed to really capture the human spirit, regardless of who's watching. But yeah, totally. If you're feeling a little disenfranchised because so few of these characters portrayed on screen, at least the main protagonists, because most of the main superheroes featured in films up to now are like white males or something similar. And yeah, if that is the constant pattern, then you might begin to think, oh, well, none of these characters really look like me, so maybe it isn't for me as much. But no, I mean, it really is for everyone, but a good way to communicate that is to start introducing these characters that do represent a much more diverse and realistic demographic, which is wonderful.
Exactly. I mean, to backpedal a little, I do have friends who love like all the superheroes. I think for me, just because I'm such like a princess fan, that I just didn't fall into that category. But now I am curious. We were talking before we started recording today about, you know, the Avengers as a whole, and I would be interested to go back to the other movies and find out more of the backstories of the different characters that will make up the Avengers. I'm assuming there's been Avenger movies already, and this is just kind of Captain Marvel's piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. So this is the 21st film in
Oh
the
wow. Okay,
Marvel.
I'm behind.
Yeah, yeah. There's been quite a few. It all began in 2008 with Iron Man. In this series, it's all one universe, and Iron Man followed by Incredible Hulk, and then Thor and Captain America came right around the same time, and then they all teamed up in the Avengers. And then, yeah, we've gotten a lot of characters introduced since then, a lot of side characters who haven't received their own film, solo film adaptations. But Captain Marvel has not been in any other Marvel Cinematic Universe film. She's been referenced slightly, really only at the end of the most recent film, or one of the most recent films besides Captain Marvel, which was Avengers Endgame. Since not Avengers Endgame, sorry, Avengers Infinity War, which came out last year. Are you familiar what movie I'm talking about, Jody? Avengers Infinity War?
I am not totally
Okay.
familiar, so refresh my memory.
No, that's okay. It was the movie with the big purple guy Thanos, who was the big villain that was facing down against the Avengers, and at the end of that movie, spoiler alert for this movie, and for Captain Marvel and Avengers Infinity War, Thanos does prove himself victorious at the end. And the next movie in the Avengers saga, Avengers Endgame, is going to be all about trying to undo the events of the climax of Avengers Infinity War. And actually, Black Panther from last year, which opened February 16th of 2018, was the number one grossing film domestically, over $700 million at the domestic box office. That's pretty insane. This year, though, however, Captain Marvel, which is a similar solo film about a character who's of a more diverse demographic, as well as one that has had little involvement, actually no involvement in previous Marvel Cinematic Universe films, received a similar reception, grossing $153 million domestically its opening weekend. So huge opening for Captain Marvel. People are very enthusiastic about this new female superhero.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure they're going to, I mean, after her success with this movie, I'm sure they're going to pull her into more of the plots when they bring them all together as a group. So that's exciting. That's exciting for girls and boys everywhere, because she is a great character, I thought. In the beginning, I wasn't super sold. You know, they start in outer space, and I'm not sure how most of these movies go, but do most of the time, do they end up taking place, the bulk of the movie, on planet Earth? Is that usually where those movies end up going? Like, that's when it picked up for me, is when she got to planet Earth. That's when I got a little more engaged in it. So is that usually how those movies go? Is there's something happening out in the universe, but the main action happens here?
Yes, you'll find that in some of these films where they aren't always confined to Earth, but these are generally Earth's mightiest heroes. The main appeal of these characters is that they are heroes on Earth, but then with the nature of comics, expanding stories out into other genres and other worlds. I'm not a comic book expert by any means, but comics have become so expansive that they span planets, galaxies, timelines, universes, dimensions, the core characters are usually heroes based on planet Earth: Spider-Man, Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, even Thor, who's sort of an alien, but also a deity. A lot of his adventures are about how he engages with people on Earth. But yeah, with Captain Marvel, I'm not totally sure of what the history is for this character in terms of the setting of most of her action. And Captain Marvel hasn't always been a female, like Carol Danvers. I think only recently Carol Danvers became Captain Marvel. Actually, July 2012. She was mostly known as Ms. Marvel, but she assumed the mantle of Captain Marvel in an ongoing series written by Kelly Sue DeConnick with art by Dexter Soy. She dons a jumpsuit and explores her own past. The pitch for the series is described as Carol Danvers as Chuck Yeager. Chuck Yeager was a pilot who did a lot of testing for the Air Force and NASA. She's kind of a maverick, crack pilot type character, sort of like in Top Gun. This movie has a reference to Top Gun with the name of the cat, Goose, one of the principal characters in that movie. Yeah, are you familiar with the Tom Cruise film Top Gun?
No.
Yeah.
No, by now when you ask me about a movie, a lot of those references are lost on me, and then I feel like I need to go back and watch.
No, it's yeah. I think it's a 1986 movie.
I've heard of it. I just have never taken the time to watch it.
It was a while back. One of Tom Cruise's biggest hits from his early days, and it was about fighter combat, jet fighters and the Cold War arms race. Yeah, so this has some similar subject matter. Carol Danvers being a pilot in the 80s for the Air Force. She wasn't allowed to do combat runs, but she was allowed to be a test pilot because she's female. She and her partner, her not co-pilot, but essentially a close friend who's also a pilot. That character's name was Monica Rambeau, or not Monica, Maria Rambeau. Monica Rambeau is the daughter who could potentially become another hero.
Monica could become a hero? Maria's
it's just something I've heard speculated.
Right. Well, that would be fun. I mean, I'm sure now they can take this story sort of in any direction they want. Are they usually based off of an existing comic, or are these movies more of inspired by a set of comics? It's not like they're copying a story that's already printed out, is it?
No, these are all original versions of these characters. Yeah, there are definitely similarities to the comics. I think they borrow heavily some of the main plot chunks, some of the main arcs get tweaked and reworked so that they can fit within the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's very rare you'll find like an actual direct adaptation of comics to films, but they'll often make large gestures towards the various elements from these comics. And yeah, we'll get to some of the plot elements with yeah, a lot of crazy sci-fi, aliens and adventures. Get planet hopping in this movie. Things do become a little bit more coherent once we get to planet Earth. But what did you think of all the crazy aliens and technology in this film?
For me, that's not like a huge interest like of the story. Like the things that like stood out to me more so than, I mean, I loved the aliens, and I loved, can we talk about the plot twist, like how they were like
Yeah.
okay, spoiler alert or whatever, but that the aliens, the green ones, do you remember their names?
The
That they were
Skrulls,
the
right?
what? Skrulls?
The Skrulls that could transform. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then the other people are the Kree, right? The Kree.
Right.
So that you found out that they weren't actually, you know, the villains of the story, that they were refugees. Like I liked all of that stuff. As far as like the costumes and like the, you know, that kind of thing about like the alien part, I don't really care about spaceships or aliens, but I liked the story. So even if no one was an alien and there were no outer spaceness and this was just like humans acting out this plot, I would have liked it. So you're probably more the expert. What did you think about the sci-fi aspects of it all?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and it did sort of scratch that sci-fi itch that I definitely appreciate from any movie. Just an incredible amount of production value when designing the sci-fi elements. Yeah, it felt like watching a Star Trek movie, kind of with the pointy-eared, vaguely humanoid characters, with the prosthetic makeup. You had Ben Mendelsohn as the leader of the Skrulls, and just very, I don't know, nostalgic feelings of watching like a Star Trek movie, or just any kind of Star Wars, of course, any film that involves adventures spanning stars. And yeah, the whole characters in makeup with the Kree, that was interesting how the Kree are like they can either be blue or else normal looking like humans, or they have diverse human types within the Kree as well. But I thought they were all blue from what I knew about the Kree from Guardians of the Galaxy, which is one of the previous Marvel Cinematic Universe films. Some characters from that film appear in Captain Marvel. So we do have plenty of returning characters, but we do learn a lot more about the cosmic landscape of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because not as many films have dealt with sort of the larger Star Trek or Star Wars-esque galaxy spanning action of this universe, which is really interesting how like the stuff that's on Earth, which is mainly what we've experienced up to now, is just one small part, and like the residents of the larger galaxy kind of look down on Earth as this, they use the word crap hole.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, Earth ends up being pretty pivotal in the events of the universe, as is demonstrated in Avengers Infinity War, when Thanos is on Earth, when he performs an action that has universe spanning implications. He wipes out a significant number of the life in, I believe, either the universe or the galaxy. I'm not totally sure if when he snaps his fingers at the end of Avengers Infinity War and uses the Infinity Gauntlet, which is a device that has the ability to basically provide its wearer with omnipotence and unlimited power. So he uses that power to wipe out a large part of life in, I can't remember if it's the universe or the galaxy, so sorry about that, but because he thinks that life, if it isn't harnessed, or if it's not regulated, it'll destroy itself. So he was going to be the arbiter to make sure that life in the universe didn't run amok and end up, destroying itself. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I'm gonna have to take your word for it. I wish Dawson was here, because I think he would know a little bit more about what you're referring to. But it makes sense how you're explaining it to me. Yes.
Yeah. It's a very fascinating thesis for a villain to have. You're saving the life in the universe by destroying half of it, essentially. Sort of like how sometimes if a country experiences a tragedy, they'll come back much stronger. Places like Germany, Japan, the places that were decimated by wars, you can sort of see how they've definitely made up for it in the intervening years. But in these films, it is now up to Captain Marvel to come to the rescue of the Avengers, of the much embroiled the surviving Avengers, I should say, at the end of Avengers: Infinity War, and how she escapes Thanos's culling, his decimation, is, I guess, either a matter of pure luck, or she was in another galaxy and wasn't affected by the snap that wiped out half of all life. So I'm curious to see where that goes.
So Skrulls are the bad guys. And you're a Kree, a race of noble warriors.
Heroes. Noble warrior heroes.
Your life began the day it nearly ended. We found you. With no memory, we made you one of us. So you could live longer, stronger, superior. You were reborn.
So, stuff on Earth. This is set in the 1990s.
I loved that part. I loved the throwback aspect. Like I said when we started talking just now, as soon as I got to planet Earth and she kind of crashes into Blockbuster, I was like, oh, this is in the 90s. And like there's even the VHSs she's looking at on the shelf, you can kind of see them in the background. Do you remember the movie? Like they paid attention to the details, because there's like a poster for that movie Babe, the talking pig.
Yeah.
And she has to use like a corded telephone, which now where do you see those anywhere? And I thought this was such the perfect time period to have her kind of like drop into. And it made it really fun, I think, for me, because I mean, who doesn't like a good like throwback? And they picked, music from when we were that age and everything too. So I thought that was great.
Great soundtrack.
It was great soundtrack.
She picks up the movie The Right Stuff when she's in Blockbuster, movie about NASA. There's a great reference to the Kevin Smith movie Mallrats, and the actual year I believe is supposed to be 1995, because they mentioned that Carol Danvers, this pilot, she was in an accident in 1989, and that resulted in her being abducted by aliens and taken in amongst this group of aliens, Kree aliens. And she's she was given blood transfusions, I guess, so that she thought she herself was a Kree. And then she also, this accident gave her a whole bunch of powers. But she is human originally. So when she comes back, her memory is sort of
scrambled up.
yeah. So this is all about her sort of rediscovering her origins, and the audience kind of gets to experience her origins through flashbacks and also just through Carol's eyes herself. The movie Mallrats, by the way, has a cameo from Marvel Comics legend Stan Lee. He was creator of a lot of the characters that you see in Marvel Comics. Yeah. Do you remember the part where he shows up in this movie?
Yep. And I was sort of watching for that because I had read something online that was coming. And I, at the beginning of the showing that I saw, they also reference him. I don't know if you saw that before the movie even starts.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stan. And they show some images of him throughout the years. But yeah, I caught that when it came into the movie. But that's because I was watching for it again. Like, I don't think I would have even known who he was, maybe if there wasn't so much buzz around his passing and this upcoming movie here.
Yeah, great. Of course, this is a great tribute to Stan Lee in the opening logo for Marvel Studios. I don't think we even mentioned Stan Lee on this podcast and his passing. I think Dawson and I talked about it at some point, and it just got deleted. So yeah, we've been much remiss in our lack of Stan Lee coverage on this podcast. But yeah, he has appeared in other films that we've reviewed on the podcast, such as Ralph Breaks the Internet. He had a brief cameo in that. And of course, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. He had a pretty significant role there. This movie takes place partially in Los Angeles. You see Stan Lee apparently on his way to audition or to film Mallrats.
Yeah.
Reading a script on the train, and then this train sort of the initial setting for a large action sequence chase between Captain Marvel, SHIELD agents, including Nick Fury and Clark Gregg's character Phil Coulson. Nick Fury, of course, played by Samuel L. Jackson. And these are characters that we have seen in previous films. Both actually showed up in the first Marvel Cinematic Universe film.
Are we going to come to find that Fury is someone special? Or is that just a cool name that this character gets?
Yeah, he's had plenty of comics centered around his character, but he's not a super powered. Okay. Yeah, he's maybe gotten superpowers. You never know. Like with comics, like there could be storylines where he does have powers, but in this version, he's just a dude with an eye patch.
He gets scratched by the cat, and I was like, is this going to be sort of like a Spider-Man situation where this cat scratch is going to make him into like Catman or something like that? But
that'd be interesting. That'd be probably more satisfying than just him getting scratched, and that's what makes him lose his eye. But since the cat is this very powerful alien, it turns out it sort of makes up for the anticlimacticness of the cat scratch being the source of the eye patch. The cat Goose, of course, plays a big role in this movie, and Nick Fury is, I guess, obsessed with the cat, which is interesting. He's constantly like just giving it attention. So he's a cat lover. It's great. So Brie Larson plays Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. There's a significant amount of time in this movie where she's referred to as Veers, because I guess that's the section of her dog tag that survived the accident. And so VERS, they pronounce that Veers. She's a general or an officer of this Kree special force, strike force, and they go around sort of enforcing Kree rule, or their stated objective is to defeat the Skrulls.
Yeah, and I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Is it Jude Law who plays her like trainer?
Yes, yeah, Jude Law.
Good. I thought so, but I'm not very good with actors. And I was like, oh wow, like that'd be like the best trainer ever. And I thought for sure they were the good guys going into this movie. And maybe it's because I haven't seen enough superhero things that they were gonna switch and be like, oh no, the villains are good or whatever. But that worked well on me. I looked at my mom and I went, they're good, they're good. Did you see that coming from the get-go when she was, training with Law's character?
No, not at all. Like I mean, I thought Jude Law would become a villain. I don't know if the trailers spoiled that he becomes a villain later in the film. I feel like they might have, but I didn't know that the Skrulls were going to be as sympathetic. And there was like a moment earlier in the film, like when the Skrulls land on Earth in pursuit of Captain Marvel, like they encounter these teenagers on a beach and they start transforming to look like these teenagers. And I thought, oh, great, these poor kids are now going to get murdered by aliens who have assumed their identities. So that was a great way of selling that these were just very villainous characters. But yeah, I guess they didn't necessarily kill the people that they transformed into. We find out that one of the characters was like locked up in a closet. And yeah, the character playing the lead Skrull, Talos, is portrayed by Ben Mendelsohn, who's in a lot of current, contemporary shows and films, playing a villain character. So just having him in a role is sort of a indicator that you're dealing with not a very nice person.
Yeah, absolutely. I was curious, and you kind of said it earlier on, but is it just makeup that they used to create these aliens? Do you know if that's mostly what it was? They used prosthetics and just makeup?
On some of them, there were others that had different proportions from a human face. So, and I think that was also makeup as well, but like the masks didn't allow for as precise, facial movement as the ones that were more human-like. So kind of an interesting mix of more alien and more human-looking Skrulls, sort of like with the face paint on the Kree.
Right.
It's kind of a cool power, the ability to transform down to the DNA and even some recent memories that the Skrulls are capable of performing. And I kind of understand how, like, if you have a race that's capable of that, how you would, naturally be suspicious of them and, want to prevent them from gaining too much influence. So this Kree probably, because the Skrulls, had such potential to infiltrate and cause a ruckus.
I was going to say, for lack of a better word, a ruckus.
Exactly. They wanted to keep them at bay, but that led to, I'm sure, many heinous acts of cruelty and genocide.
Yeah. And I mean, pardon me if I'm like making you clarify something that everybody who's listening already knows, but did they ever state their main reason for wanting to eliminate this race of like people? Like, was it ever, because they talk about like this is about ending a war, or that's kind of like they keep coming back to this war. Do they ever talk about in the movie, because I'm not sure if I just like zoned out, do they ever talk about why the war began? They talk about ending it a lot.
I think both of these races are like spacefaring. They're kind of like the Klingons and the Romulans. They both control and those are aliens from Star Trek that are oftentimes in opposition to each other. and are independent from the Federation. The Federation is like this large, galaxy spanning government, or sort of loose association of planets and races. And then there are sort of other races. It's, like the UN or the EU. There are non-member races that control their own portions of space. And the Kree and the Skrulls, I'm guessing, kind of control their own territories of space and are always, just butting up against each other. And I'm guessing that's how things have sort of played out. And it's possible that like they're both sort of at fault for a lot of the conflict between the two races. But this movie definitely takes more of a Skrulls perspective.
Right. And then you find that was the mission of Carol's like mentor, her mentor on Earth, because, Jude Law's her mentor when she's a Kree, but her mentor on Earth was trying to find them basically like a sanctuary or someplace to a new land, a new planet, right? That was the goal.
Yeah.
And that was but Carol didn't know anything about that when she was on planet Earth. She only seemed to discover that towards the end of the movie, once all of her memories sort of come together. She has that clarity moment of what might have actually been going on with her training and the goals of her mentor. What was her mentor's name? I shouldn't just refer to her as the mentor, but the woman she's been admiring.
Dr. Wendy Lawson, played by Annette Bening.
Yeah, Wendy Lawson.
So I guess there are these refugees that she's trying to find a way to send them to a new home, which is, you'd think if the Skrulls are this influential species that they'd have other territories that are more safe for them. But maybe they have been just so villainized in their current situation that the best option for them would be to escape to just an entirely new realm. And maybe most Skrulls are bad. Like, Skrulls have always been portrayed as villains throughout the comics, and this is sort of the first time where they are more sympathetic. There was like a whole comic series about Skrulls infiltrating Earth and like posing as superhero characters.
Oh, that one would be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the plot was incredibly like realistic. I mean, anyone on planet Earth right now can probably think of there's a refugee crisis and an immigration crisis sort of all over. Like, you hear about different countries all the time where they're not welcomed into new places. I'm not talking about like the Mexican border or anything, but I thought the plot was very timely in that sense because of these issues we hear about refugees and people looking for asylum, but then like having a lack of understanding and like no strategy for where to put these people. So I thought it was great that that's what they ended up doing with the Skrulls in this. But I don't have the history of knowledge about the race or anything like that. But I thought it was on point, like topic for them.
Yeah.
And I assume they could make a sequel with this. Is that usually with these superhero movies, do they usually pick up where the one left off? Like, if we were to imagine a sequel to Captain Marvel, would it be like, all right, and now the Skrulls are looking for a brand new home? Or is it sort of another plot altogether where it's a new disaster? Does it sort of pick up, or does it start a new story?
I wouldn't be surprised if that does, because I am very curious about that conflict. In fact, I think there's a lot of details to that whole conflict that some really significant events that happen in between this 90s era and sort of the current state of the Avengers universe, because we find out in Guardians of the Galaxy that the Kree race has been pretty much wiped out, and one of the main villain is one of the last surviving members. So it kind of makes sense that the Kree maybe got their comeuppance, as it were. But it'd be interesting to see how exactly that happened.
Right. I think so too. I don't know. Do you ever read the blogs and the vlogs after a movie comes out where people have insight on that, or
A little bit. I don't delve too deeply. A lot of it is highly speculative, and with these movies, they like to always put a strong twist on things, like they did with the Skrulls, and the fact that the character Mar-Vell, which is sort of the patriarch of like the Captain Marvel comics line, like they changed that character into a woman, which is this the Wendy Lawson character. The first Captain Marvel, actually printed in Marvel Comics, was created by Stan Lee and Gene Colan in Marvel Superheroes number 12 in 1967. And the character was an alien military officer, Captain Mar-Vell of the Kree Imperial Militia, and he's sent to observe planet Earth. So Marvel was originally, or Mar-Vell was originally a man, and in this iteration, he's still Kree, but played by Annette Bening, and then
they're like, well, 50 years have passed. We should probably put a few female characters in this movie or in this story.
Yeah.
50 years, right? You said 67 was when the comic itself was released?
Yeah, 1967.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so plenty of significant changes, and a lot of great inclusion of topical issues.
Right.
Air Force, not allowing combat pilots to be female. The fact that Captain Marvel, the name Captain Marvel, is actually also associated with DC Comics. Have you seen trailers for the movie Shazam?
Is that sort of where the kid? Well, he says Shazam, and then he turns into that guy in the red.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah. I've seen the trailer for that. It reminds me of the movie Big.
Yeah, it looks good. Actually, that character used to be called Captain Marvel as well. So, yeah, DC Comics had their own Captain Marvel. And I'm even less familiar with the origins of that character, but kind of bizarre that that the two sort of overlap in that way. And then now we're getting a Shazam movie coming out soon.
You know how to fly this thing?
We'll see.
That's a yes or no question.
Yes.
Let's see, before we continue, I just need to fact check the character Monica Rambeau. I mentioned how I thought that she might be, the young girl that we see, the daughter of Maria Rambeau, Carol Danvers' best friend, like that she might be a setup for a future version of Captain Marvel in the films. Well, that's because her character was the second Captain Marvel. The title passed from the original male alien character Mar-Vell to this Monica Rambeau, who first appeared in 1982. And then she would go on to be a leader of the Avengers in future comics. And she also would pass the title of Captain Marvel to a later iteration. And then she's also gone by the name Photon and Pulsar, as well as Spectrum. So this is a huge character within the comics, and I'd be remiss to...
But now you nailed it. Now people know, and she's sort of like a legacy. Sounds like she's hands off to someone else, hands off the baton to the next.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that original version of Monica Rambeau ties to Maria Rambeau in the comics and Carol Danvers. I think that might have just been a total reboot, and then she was just maybe she was reintroduced as this daughter character. But an interesting connection nonetheless. So we'll see how that. I'm super excited for more adventures with Captain Marvel taking place in between the events of this film and Captain Marvel's next appearance, which will be in Avengers Endgame.
Right, and is that one coming out this year as well, or do we have a longer wait?
Yeah, it comes out in May, I believe. I'm not totally
Not
sure.
too far away.
Let's see. I'm gonna.
Sorry, I'm asking you all the tough questions.
No, I should know this. Avengers, freaking Yahoo. Why is it defaulting to Yahoo search?
That's funny because did you catch in the movie when she was in the 90s and she was trying to, like, Google didn't exist yet, so she was like, what was she using to try to search up? And then it was like loading later in the thing, and just kind of those little knocks at technology, how bad we had it back then.
Hilarious. Yeah.
Now we couldn't function if things had to load the way they did back in the 90s.
April 26th is the release of Avengers Endgame.
Oh, so really right around the corner.
Yep. We see the clip at the end of this movie, post credits, or mid credits, I should say. Captain Marvel shows up with the surviving Avengers. Do you remember that part? You didn't leave right away, did you?
Don't kill me. I left.
I
left. So you'll have to fill me in what happened.
No, you have to stay through the credits on all these movies because there's usually something, even at the very end. But this was the mid-credit scene where most of the original Avengers, so Black Widow, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, they're looking at statistics on like casualties, and then Captain Marvel shows up because at the end of Infinity War, the character Nick Fury is about to get killed by Thanos in the oh gosh, there is an actual term for Thanos' snap. A term for Thanos. Sorry to have one more departure here.
No, that's all right.
Snap. Term.
Listeners don't mind, and neither do I.
Well, okay, they call it the decimate. See, this is what I was thinking. It's the decimation when Thanos snaps his fingers and wipes out half the population. But decimation refers to 1/10. So either you're wiping out 1/10 or you're leaving 1/10, but it's half. So the word decimation is not a very accurate term to use. But oh well. Yeah, so they're looking at casualty numbers from the decimation, and then Captain Marvel shows up, and that's the end.
That's the end.
Well,
is she going to be the same actress coming into the one in like the one playing Captain America?
Captain Marvel, Brie Larson.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Captain America. Where's my head? Captain Marvel. Is it going to be the same actress?
Yeah, she's contracted for a long time, and with this movie being so successful, we'll probably get at least 3 solo Captain Marvel movies.
I thought she was the perfect actress for it, so I think that's great that they have her.
Yeah,
I like her subtle way of acting, not too overly dramatic, a little bit more of a deadpan type humor, I guess. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. She was a little bit more she was funny and she was charming, but in a subtle,
I like that. Yeah,
interacting a lot.
You're exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she kind of reminded me of Sigourney Weaver from Alien, and she's a notable action. She kind of kicked off like the female action star persona, Sigourney Weaver. And yeah, we've seen several other. Linda Hamilton from Terminator is another example. Of course, these are all sort of throwback films from the 70s and 80s that aren't necessarily ubiquitous to current generation moviegoers. But someone like me, who's sort of a student of film in general, I try to brush up on my film history. To me, like things like Terminator and Alien aren't film history. They're just as relevant now as they ever were. But that may not be that may not be the case for everyone.
Yeah, no, you're right. They are. They're relevant now, and they were then. And
well, so much of our current culture, pop culture, is nostalgia driven. So
yeah, we've seen that in a lot of the movies that we've gone through on the Thodcast, I think.
Yeah, well, Mary Poppins. I mean, and
Wreck-It Ralph has some throwback humor in it too.
Yeah, the whole '90s connection with this movie.
Yeah, that's what really drew me in, and I don't know how the next one goes or how the next ones are, but I hope that they stay as strong with the overall like feel of the movie. Like I loved the vibe of this one, from the soundtrack to the acting to the costumes. It was great.
What do you think of people who are maybe slightly unimpressed by like this notion of a female action hero just sort of not portraying what they would prefer as traditional feminine qualities? I mean, I think the sort of the knee-jerk reaction to that kind of impression is sort of like how Captain Marvel treats Jude Law at the end of this movie, where she's like, or he's like, take me on man to man, prove yourself that you can, be in control of your powers, and because he wants, yeah, and then she just blasts him with her powers.
Right.
I have nothing to prove to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone who maybe goes into it with like that mindset, this movie's probably not going to like change their mind. They're still probably going to feel the same way walking out. It's hard to cater to people who have already made up their mind, whether it's princess movies or superhero movies or anything like that. It seems like if people are pretty like dead set on thinking like this is too feminist for feminism or not feminist enough for feminism. I mean, you see that complaint with Wonder Woman, like people thought it was too much or not enough. Diversity or whatever. So it's hard to say. I don't have enough friends that give me insight on that end of things, but I thought it did just enough tapping into the feminist part without being too in your face about it. I thought it was a really good balance for anyone who went in to watch it. Like, don't you think it wasn't too heavy?
No, I mean, that one line at the end when she refuses to play Jude Law's game, right. I thought it would have been better if she didn't say something like, I have nothing to prove. That seemed a little on the nose, but the delivery of it, like Brie Larson's delivery of it, totally sold it, even if the line was sort of clunky.
Yeah.
I would have maybe preferred something just like, you pathetic piece of shit, or have you had enough yet? Just like something really dismissive. But no, it made, I think, a lot of great headway towards inclusion, and I think this is just a very much needed revitalization of the superhero genre, much like Black Panther was last year.
Right. I think they're really tapping into what like consumers and moviegoers and like what our culture is looking for now when we go to the movies, and when we go not only with superhero movies but all around, that we're a more what would you say, like a woke generation? I don't know what you would want to call it, but that's what we want to see on film, and that's what people are tweeting about, and that's what people are pushing for in every industry. So I mean, they're making the right choices by doing things like Black Panther and Captain Marvel, and it might not always be perfect for everyone, but they're moving in the right direction, and I think it's exciting. Like I said, I probably wouldn't have gone to if this had been Captain Marvel and it was a male character, honestly, I probably wouldn't have gone to it. I really wouldn't have. So I think it's great. And I think a lot of kids are going to get excited about superheroes, and it's going to really reach out to a brand new demographic.
Awesome.
Moving forward.
Cool. Yes. Well, this has been our review and discussion on Captain Marvel. Jody, I'm glad you got a glimpse of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a fun time, but it's not necessarily for everyone. I know, big, high-flung visual effects films and action films are not everyone's cup of tea, and I totally get it. But they're the type of thing that I go head over heels for. Oh, what's that?
I said absolutely you do.
I saw a trailer, and the first time I saw Captain Marvel, I was like coming off of several days working on set. Dawson and I were on a film set all of last week, and that's why we went a week without having an episode. But I was just super exhausted. I went to the movie with a friend super late and fell asleep halfway through. So I had to see it again. But the first time I was hoping for a trailer for Frozen 2 in front of the film, which would have been kind of surprising. Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I saw it. My mom and I were like tearing up. It was amazing on the big screen. It's very similar to the one that's online now, but maybe 30 seconds more.
Okay.
So it was still more like a teaser than anything else, maybe a minute and a half long, 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, with the movie being so far away, like there's so many other movies coming out between now and then. But with this being such a female-centered film, with that type of symmetry, it makes sense. But the second time I saw it in theaters, I walked in right as the Frozen 2 trailer started playing. It was longer,
wasn't it? Did you see that it was longer? Was yours?
I don't think so. I think this was the trailer that I've been seeing online.
Okay, you don't need to record all this, but I'm going to.
Because, that would be big news if there was new footage from that.
I mean, it's a similar thing. They just elongate the ocean scene where Elsa's running out at the ocean. I'll rewatch everything. Next time everyone listens, I'll let you know if I was right or wrong. So catch us next week. We need to tell people to subscribe.
Anyways, I was super floored. Yeah, I'll work on promoting a podcast. But this has been really fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jody. And we're gonna sign off now. Thanks for listening to our discussion, to our audience members, and you all have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
You say it first, then I'll say it.
All right. Higher, further, faster.
Higher, further, faster.
Awesome.